Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly look at stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and this week, increasing numbers of Senegalese migrants are heading to Central America in the hopes of eventually making it on to the United States. But the journey in pursuit of that American dream is expensive and often dangerously uncertain. Also, World Mental Health Day turned a spotlight onto the hidden struggles that so many bear. In Kenya, the rising cost of living has added to the daily stress of millions. And the rising water levels of Kenya's largest freshwater lake have led to an explosion in the crocodile population that's now threatening communities' lives, limbs, and livelihoods. But first, increasing numbers of Senegalese migrants are heading to Nicaragua in Central America in the hopes of eventually making it to the US. Those arriving by plane don't need to have a visa initially, but they then can travel by road to Mexico and gamble on taking a journey northwards from there. Our correspondents met some for whom that American dream has faded. Take a look.
22-year-old Keba remembers when he reached this wall, the last obstacle before making it into the United States. His American dream was eventually shattered when he was deported back to Senegal from a detention center in Texas last month.
These are really bad memories. I really wanted to complete my journey.
Keba first flew into Nicaragua before passing through multiple Central American countries to reach the US border. The journey cost him more than 12,000 euros.
The journey is dangerous. The smugglers don't have fixed prices. There's no security. And you can find yourself in countries where you're vulnerable. You can be shot at with impunity. You constantly have to flee immigration services, who can arrest and deport you at any moment.
Nicaragua doesn't require a visa for Senegalese migrants arriving by plane. Those with the resources are turning away from the deadly migration route by boat to the Canary Islands. While migration to Central America isn't a new phenomenon, it's certainly becoming more popular. Researchers attribute this to the economic crisis, as well as the emergence of a new profile of migrant in Senegal.
These are people that have economic capital and who also have professional experience that cannot be fully exploited in their country of origin. Now, considering the inflation here, people feel forced to leave. We shouldn't forget that these people feel abandoned, so there's a feeling of frustration.
According to a recent report from the IOM, nearly 20,000 Africans crossed the border from Nicaragua into Honduras during the first half of 2023, an increase of more than 500% compared to the same period last year.
Now, the 10th of October marked World Mental Health Day. Even before the pressures caused by the pandemic, more than 116 million people across Africa were reckoned to be living with some kind of mental health condition. Now, in Kenya, the rising cost of living has recently ratcheted up the daily stress of millions. Take a look.
A wave of protests hit Kenya these past months as anger over tax hikes and the cost of living spilled into the streets. Anger, frustration and fear, all having a deep impact on people's lives.
So some of the main causes that we have noted to have maybe contributed to mental health conditions or issues, we can talk of economic hardships right now in the country. So many people are trying so hard to, let's say, make a living, and in these times, depression kicks in and people don't have the control over their mental health.
The sleeplessness. I haven't slept for like 3 days now.
But for many like Joyce Mugure, who struggled for many years with bipolar disorder, it takes time to find the courage to ask for help.
I didn't know what I was going through. So all my life I've been feeling different. I've faced a lot of stigma and discrimination because most people around me didn't understand what I was going through. Nobody knew it was an illness. Until one day when I was very suicidal, I saw someone advocating for mental health online, and I reached out to them.
The Psychiatric Disability Organization in Kenya estimates around 2 million people are living with mental health issues. The organization offers therapy sessions at moderate rates with services for people who can't afford the payments. If not handled, mental health issues can have devastating consequences. The World Health Organization estimates that Africa has the world's highest rates of suicide in the world. Breaking down taboos around admitting to suffering psychological distress is key to bringing the numbers down. Gladys Mwiti is a psychologist. She shares her recipe for good mental health.
Do not take it for granted when you are finding you cannot sleep, because insomnia is related to stress, and the stress then will lead you to depression. So make sure you sleep well, exercise, eat well, and then get support around yourself. Make sure you have 1 or 2 friends that you can run to at any time of night or day.
Now, Rwanda is cracking down on illegal mining. Workers are often dying on dangerous and unregulated sites, and Kigali wants to modernise the industry in a bid to attract more investment. But some of the country's neighbours accuse it of trying to profit off resources that don't belong to it. Kigali wants to prove them wrong. Our team reports.
Until a few months ago, this mine in the east of Rwanda was illegally operated. Workers removed and sold cassiterite, a mineral used widely in the metallurgical industry. A local company has recently acquired the concession.
We stopped working in this direction. They destroyed the mine. People working illegally don't take safety standards into account.
Over 400 miners have been killed in accidents since 2019. Authorities are cracking down on unlicensed mining and regulating the industry.
Those professional companies or technical companies that have come in legally and authorized by the government have put together and organized our local people, and those incidents that we used to have during illegal mining, like death and injuries and environmental degradation, is no longer there.
Rwanda is also banking on the modernization of its mines. The most advanced one, near the capital, is mostly funded by British investors. In 1 year, production of tungsten, a metal used in weaponry and new technologies, has quadrupled. James, a 16-year veteran of the mine, says the technical upgrades have had a huge impact on his community.
People, they are happy because of increased production. You bring the capex equipment. Now even the salaries, it is times 10. It is not so easy to see the years before because it was in hardship.
Kigali hopes to exceed 1 billion euros in export in 2023 and attract new investors.
I think there's huge potential here. It's an unexplored country when it comes to mining. You know, people are focused on, the Congo, for example. But we need to get those investors to come here and focus on doing exploration drilling in Rwanda.
Rwanda has consistently denied accusations by Kinshasa and the UN of plundering Congolese deposits. Kigali has insisted that its own mineral reserves, valued at over 100 billion euros, are more than enough for its ambitions.
Now, Kenya's largest freshwater lake has seen a huge rise in water levels and crocodiles. That's put pressures on communities that rely on Lake Baringo's waters. Our team report.
Lake Baringo is a lifeline for the local community. Francis Leckie has been fishing here for the past 30 years, but recently his livelihood has been endangered by an unexpected rival.
I was attacked by a crocodile. I managed to survive, but one of my children didn't. My 12-year-old boy was killed.
Over the past decade, climate change-induced floods have caused the lake to double in size, which has attracted a record number of crocodiles.
Look, there's one.
The creatures are champions at hide and seek. They can camouflage themselves as rocks and attack when least expected. They're even taking over people's homes.
People used to live here. There was a center, trading center here. So people relocated.
According to this activist, not enough is being done to protect residents against the impacts of climate change.
And it is causing a lot of challenges to the population here. There are so many people who have been harmed by crocodiles, and without compensation, without even a formula how we can be able to mitigate this challenge.
This IDP camp was set up by people displaced by the floods and reptiles. They've launched a class action against the government to obtain this compensation, which would enable them to rebuild.
The reparations would change our lives. We need to buy land to build houses for our families and plant crops to sustain ourselves. Our only hope is this court case. Our fate is in the hands of the court.
In 2020, more than 30,000 Baringo residents were displaced. Locals fear that with the worsening climate crisis and with El Niño around the corner, many more will be forced to leave their homes by the end of this year.
Now, Senegalese farmers do most of their work during a 3-month period over the rainy season. The rest of their year depends on the quality of that harvest. Now, peanuts are at the heart of the country's agricultural output, and poor yields recently have hit rural communities hard. Our reporters from the central region of Kaolack tell us how farmers there are now hedging their bets on watermelon.
Alaji, a long-time peanut farmer, hopes that this field of watermelons could be his saving grace. He's among the many farmers here in the central region of Kaolack to have begun cultivating the fruit.
Watermelon is very profitable when there is a good harvest. It is even more profitable than peanuts, even if peanuts are more versatile.
Watermelons play an essential role in providing food security for rural communities in this part of Senegal, where most people work as farmers. Watermelons can provide a lifeline for farmers waiting for the millet and peanut harvest to begin. Omar sells his own melons on the market for between €1 and €1.50.
At the moment, we are still waiting for other harvests, but we still need to make a living. We still need to pay for rice, oil, water, and electricity bills.
Farmers want to grow their melons even bigger, but are limited by the prohibitive cost of fertilizer, which has shot up by at least 60% since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. The authorities say they are working on a solution.
The Agriculture Ministry is looking at initiatives that will allow farmers to produce more sustainably through subsidizing organic fertilizer and foliar fertilizers that farmers have not benefited from before.
Farmers around Kaolack who depend largely on the rainy season are calling on the authorities to develop better solutions for storing and distributing water to allow for year-long cultivation.
Well, that's it for Across Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, though. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.